Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you for being here tonight. As always, if you are new to my channel, if this is your first time here and you're interested in tarot cards, tarot readings, true crime cases, unsolved cases, missing persons cases, and the occasional candle making video, please consider subscribing. I thank you. And for those of you who come back every week, I thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. And I do have to apologize because I know I said I was going to get tonight's video up on time. However, I had a little snafu. I purchased a new mic and I recorded earlier, and I went back to upload all my pictures and everything, and I realized I had not turned my mic on, and so I had a hour and 15-minute video pulling cards but no audio. So after shitting myself there for a second, I had to restart. So lesson learned. I will never let that happen again. But then when I went to record again, the mic needed to be charged. So for this video tonight, I'm just using my regular mic. I will use the new mic in my next video. Okay, I don't have time to continue to record this video over and over tonight. So it's already going to be up a little bit later than normal. So I apologize. But I also want to mention quickly, I do want to let you guys know, remind you that I do private tarot readings, and I thank you for all of you who reached out for a private tarot reading. All the information that you need will be in the description box. I'll send you, or I'll put my email there. All you have to do is send me an email. We'll set it up. I do the readings just like how I do here with these readings, same format. You get to see me shuffle, you get to see me pull the cards, and what I do is I upload it, but I upload it as an unlisted video, which just means that I will send you the link to that video and you are the only person that can view that video. Okay, so it's private. And I will leave that video up there for as long as you like. You can go back and you can watch it anytime, however many times you want. So that's how I do the private readings. And again, thank you for all of you who reached out, because there was actually quite a lot of you who have reached out for a private reading. So I thank you. So for tonight's reading, this was a requested case, and the case that I'm reading on tonight is going to be on the murder of Sister Cathy Cesnick. And this was a requested reading a long time ago. It was one of the first few requested videos that I had received, and I kind of put it off. I didn't know too much about it. One of the reasons why I put it off, and it was my fault because I didn't look into it, and I know there's a documentary series out on Netflix about this, and I believe it's like a 7-part series, but I've never watched it. There was never, and I kind of feel guilty saying this, but there was never an interest in watching it, I think, because I honestly thought that the crime had been solved. I thought that the priest, I knew the gist of what was going on, but I really truly thought that the priest involved was actually found guilty or was known for a fact of committing this crime. So when I started going back to my list and looking at some of these older cases to get some of these older cases done, I finally looked into that one to really kind of, it amazed me that I was completely wrong. Like, this case is not solved, and this man, this Joseph Maskell, although he has been accused of all of these charges of abuse and possibly a connection to Sister Cathy's death, nothing ever happened. There was no consequences. There was no looking into it, not even an investigation, it seems. So I can now understand why this case was suggested and why it's such a good case to read on. So I thank you for whoever requested it in the beginning, and I'm sorry it took me so long to get to it, but we're going to get to it tonight. Better late than never, right? And I'm going to completely try to remove the reading that I did earlier, okay, because I've got all those cards in my mind, and I don't want that to spill over into this reading. So I'm going to try to clean the slate and just start fresh with this reading here. And then right before I pull, I'll go over this new tarot deck that I got as well. So let me go ahead and read a little bit of the background so that we're all on the same page. I'm sure you all know way more about this case than I do because, like I said, I have not watched the documentary. I only started looking into it yesterday and today. Okay, so in just that amount of time, that short time span, I'm just amazed at everything that I have come across. It's just unbelievable. So, okay, Sister Cathy Cesnick was born on November 17th, 1942 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. She was the oldest of 4 children. She attended St. Mary's Catholic School and was even named valedictorian of her class in 1960. Cathy seemed to be loved by everyone from an early age. It's no surprise that when she grew up and became a teacher herself, the students and staff adored her. Cathy began teaching English to juniors and seniors at Archbishop Keough High School in Baltimore, Maryland. She was devoted to her students and to their education. Students recall her as being a very loving, compassionate, and patient teacher, one they could open up to if they felt they needed to. So, again, it was no surprise when several female students attending Keough High School confided in Sister Cathy that they were, in fact, victims of abuse. The abusers, they named Father Joseph Maskell and Neil Magnus. One student reports that when she told Sister Cathy about what was going on, Sister Cathy replied to her with a, quote, "I'll take care of it," end quote. However, in 1969, Sister Cathy ends up leaving Keough High School and transfers to a public high school named Western High. Now, I'm not sure exactly why she transfers to this, but that is another question, or actually a question, one of the many questions that I'm going to be asking tonight. So Sister Cathy and her friend and a fellow nun by the name of Helen Russell are often called Russ, and I think I'll refer to her as Russ as well in tonight's reading. They end up breaking tradition a little bit, and they move out of the convent, and they shared a small 2-bedroom apartment. They begin wearing civilian clothing, so they're no longer wearing their habits out and about, and they transfer to public schools. And I'm not 100% sure about this either, but I don't believe that Sister Cathy or Russ had permission from the church or by the church to do this. And we're told that they had to make a decision by the end of the year whether or not they were going to return to Keough and move back to the convent or be done altogether. So that takes us up to the day of her disappearance. So November 7th, I want to say I think it was a Friday because it was, I think, her payday. So November 7th, 1969, Sister Cathy was finishing up a long week at school and was planning to cash her paycheck of $255. For some reason, I was really curious to see what that was in today's standard, and when I looked it up, it's about $1,800 today. But she planned on cashing her paycheck, which she did do, and was going to purchase a wedding gift for a family member, I think it was her sister, and head home back to her small apartment at the carriage house. And I think it's been confirmed that when she left around 7-ish. And she left in the car that she shared with her roommate. In fact, I think it might have been Russ's car, if I'm not mistaken. So the way it worked is Russ had this car, but Russ and Sister Cathy would share the car. I think Russ worked at a school that was almost across the street from their apartment complex, the carriage house. So she could just easily walk to work, and then I think Sister Cathy would take the car to drive to Western High, which I don't think was very far away, but it was not as close as Russ's school that she was working at. So that's how they would kind of split the car. So Russ, okay, so she does purchase the wedding gift as well as some bakery buns. And we know that because the buns were found in the car. Okay. However, she never makes it back inside of her apartment. It's unknown if she actually made it back to the parking lot or not. That's another question I want to ask. Did she, the car was actually found later. I'm curious to know if she was brought back and taken in another car, or if they took her from someplace else and just returned the car, dumped the car. I don't know. All right, so As the hours passed, Russ becomes a little bit more and more concerned. As we know, okay, we're living in a different era now. Okay, cell phones weren't a thing back there, so this wasn't an era which you could just call someone on their cell phone and ask where they are. Given that they shared that car, Russ had no way to go out and look for her. Okay, so here's where it gets, from what I have read, it gets a little bit iffy because Russ doesn't immediately call the police. Okay, she calls 2 Jesuit priests. Okay, their names are Peter McKeon and Jerry Koob. Okay, so she calls them and she's telling them that, you know, she suspects something's going on, or she's worried because Sister Cathy has taken the car. She left around 7-ish and she hasn't returned. Okay, so I think a lot of people have brought that phone call up as to why she didn't call the police. Why call these 2 priests and not the police? But I don't really think that that's necessarily a cause for concern, because when I put myself in her shoes, and you know, it's a Friday night, and granted, I think that they kind of had a tradition, they wouldn't stay out past 10, but my first thought wouldn't be extreme emergency. My first thought would be, God, I hope she didn't get into a fender bender, or I hope something didn't happen to the car. Maybe she ran out of gas. I wouldn't necessarily think that she's been abducted and murdered. You know, hindsight is 20/20, so of course we're looking at it because we know what ultimately happened to Sister Cathy, and so I think we're quick to judge, or some people are quick to judge Russ and who she called and when she decided to call him. I think that she just probably didn't want to call the police yet at that point, but not because of something sinister. Okay, so she calls Peter McKeon and Jerry Koob, and I do want to add that it's been speculated that Sister Cathy was in a relationship with Jerry Koob, and we're going to pull cards on that as well. Okay, I believe the 3 eventually call the police around 1 a.m. So then Sister Cathy's car, or Russ's car, was found later that night across the parking lot. I think it was illegally parked. I think it had some mud on it, and I think that there were sticks and twigs attached to the headlights. The area was searched, but Cathy was never found, unfortunately, until January 3rd, 1970. Sadly, her body was found by a hunter in a landfill in a remote area of Lansdowne, which I think is somewhat close by. An autopsy was performed, revealing that Cathy died from an intracerebral hemorrhage due to a fracture to her skull from a blow to her left temple by a blunt instrument. To this day, no one has faced charges for her murder, and we still don't know who killed her. We are left with more questions than we have answers. The main suspect, I think we can kind of agree that the main person of interest, Joseph Masco, he ended up dying in 2001 and was never charged with anything as far as I can tell. However, several women came forward accusing him of abuse, and it was revealed that in 2011, the Archdiocese of Baltimore, Maryland, paid off numerous settlements to Masco's alleged victims. So when you start hearing about payouts and payoffs and things like that, that to me is, you know, just almost the same as an admission of guilt. And, you know, I'd like to know how many. It says several, but it sounds like, I'm going to ask again if the allegations are truthful and if Masco is in fact guilty of these things that he's been accused of, because in my mind I feel like he is. But just to be fair, I'm going to ask the question anyway. All right, so I think the biggest question we have tonight is who killed Sister Cathy. But I also want to ask if Joseph Masco is possible, you know, has he killed anyone else, basically? Because there were other women in the area around that time that were found murdered, and the crime scene was similar to Sister Cathy's. And I also want to ask about his partner in crime, Neil Magnus, because I think that, and I don't know if I said this in the first paragraph or not, but Neil Magnus was also working at the Keele School, and I believe that when the girls confided in Sister Cathy, they mentioned both Joseph Maskell and Neil Magnus. So I want to ask about him as well. Kind of like were they partners in crime kind of thing. I did read that Maskell's body, he died in 2001. I did read that his body was exhumed and DNA was extracted from him, but that DNA did not match any DNA found at the crime scene. So that doesn't necessarily mean that he wasn't there, and it doesn't mean that he didn't have something to do with it or that he didn't cause it to happen. So, I don't really take too much stock in that. It could have been Neil Magnus, because I don't think his DNA has been tested. I couldn't find that anywhere. I did look that up, and I couldn't find anywhere where Neil Magnus's DNA has been tested. So, was Neil Magnus the guy on the front lines? Was he the one committing the actual crimes under the rule of Joseph Maskell? So there's that. Now, also in the 90s, a woman comes forward. I think her last name is Weiner, if I'm not mistaken. So she comes forward in the 90s, and she claims that Maskell had taken her to see Cesnick's body before it was discovered by police in 1970. So apparently he drives her out to where this body is, so that means that he knew where her body must have been, right? And he shows her Sister Cathy, and he tells her, he said, this is what happens to people who say bad things, okay? This is what she says that he said to her. This is what happens when people do bad things. So kind of like a threat, a warning. And, there's both camps. There's people that say no, that couldn't have happened, and there's people that absolutely believe it. So that is another question that I have for the cards tonight is, did that incident occur? Did this woman, in fact, was she taken out to Sister Cathy's body by Joseph Maskell and threatened? All right, so after additional allegations surfaced over the years, Maskell was finally removed from the ministry, but then he fled to Ireland after 2 women filed a lawsuit against him of more abuse. Apparently, I don't know how long he was in Ireland for, but he worked as a psychologist there before finally returning to the U.S. So, I think I've read somewhere along the line that there are women coming out of the woodworks from Ireland as well, accusing him of things. So this guy just kind of took his nastiness all over the world, right? I don't know. We have a lot of questions tonight. So first of all, I want to ask, was Maskell involved in Sister Cathy's murder? And same thing for Magnus. Was he involved in some way, shape, or form? I want to ask if the allegations themselves of all this abuse by all these other women, if in fact, Maskell is responsible for that. I also want to ask why Sister Cathy transferred schools. Why did she leave Keogh to go to a public high school? I kind of feel like there's a couple of different reasons, but one of the things that I'm wondering about is if she was preparing to possibly report what had been confided to her, and perhaps wanted to remove herself from that environment before, let's say, shit hit the fan. So that's kind of what I have in my mind, just kind of wanted to get away from that. It would have been really uncomfortable for her to possibly report something like that and still have to work there and face Maskell in the hallway and in the building, and who knows what kind of an environment that he would have made that into. So that's kind of where I'm leaning towards that, but we'll go ahead and ask that question as well. I want to ask about the relationship between Sister Cathy and Jerry Koob. And I also want to ask about the relationship, or the friendship, I should say, between Sister Cathy and Sister Russ. I'll just call her Russ. And I also want to ask, and I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but I do want to ask about the woman. Well, I did. I think I said that, where the woman claims that Maskell took her out to see Sister Cathy's body. I want to ask about that. So, oh, and another thing about the corruption. How far up did the corruption go? So, it does say that the Archdiocese of Baltimore, Maryland did pay off those women who were making allegations. Did they pay off investigators? Did they pay off the police department? Was homicide told to look the other way? Were they covering up for the church? I'm curious to know if that was part of this as well. So that's where we're at. We have more questions and answers at this point, and we are going to get right into the reading. But first, I wanted to let you guys know I have a new tarot deck, and when I recorded this earlier, I had my usual 2 or 3 decks out, but I ended up using this new deck for all of it, so I'm just going to use this deck tonight. This is another Lo Scarabeo deck. I'm beginning to really, really like Lo Scarabeo. I love his decks. He follows the traditional universal Rider-Waite method, so very familiar images. That's the only one I like. But he really, really does great in this one here. I definitely recommend this. The images are what drew me to this deck, and I'm so glad that I purchased it because I'm not disappointed at all. But most importantly, the book that comes with it. This is so good. This would be good for anyone, okay? Anyone. If you're just starting out, if you don't even know anything about tarot cards, or if you're a master, if you've been reading tarot cards your entire life, you could get something out of this book. I'm literally reading this book from start to finish. Normally when you buy tarot decks, oftentimes you might get a little tiny pamphlet paper thing. It's like 3 pages and it goes through each and every card in 3 pages. Most of the time I don't even read those ones, but this one here, I'm literally taking my time and I'm going to read it from beginning to end because it's that good. Definitely recommend this deck. The book is amazing. The art is even better. So that is called the Heaven and Earth Tarot, and it is, like I said, it's a Lo Scarabeo tarot. So first and foremost, I want to just pull a couple of cards just to kind of get us going. And I want to ask Sister Cathy if there's anything that she kind of wants to start with before we get going. Before we get going in the nitty-gritty, what would she like us to start out with? Let's open up the story here. All right. What do you want to tell us, Sister Cathy? What do you want to tell us? How do you want to start this story? How do you want to start this story? Oh. Okay, okay. Okay, that's enough to start out. All right, so first and foremost, the first thing I see here is love. We've got the Two of Cups, okay? And literally this deck says love on the bottom. I'm not too fond of all the writing on the bottom. I think that sometimes, I find that to be slightly distracting a little bit, but you know, it's going to work. So we've got love, the Two of Cups, okay? We've got a divine union. We've got a couple here. And so I think the first message that Cathy wants us to know is I do believe that Jerry Koob was more than just a friend. I think that there was definitely a budding relationship. It was still new. We're at the 2, right? We're only in the early stages of this relationship, but it was a relationship and it was evolving, okay? It would have continued to go. And I do believe that with the 7 of Cups here, I think that Cathy Cathy had a lot of, her sister Cathy, she had a lot of things on her mind. There were a lot of things that she was thinking about doing. Okay, she had the situation with obviously Maskell, and how she was going to deal with that. What was she going to do about what these girls had told her and confided into her? Was she going to report it? I think that she was in the midst of that. She was planning. Okay, I don't think she knew exactly quite how she was going to go about it, but I think leaving Keogh was the beginning stage of that. I also think that she had decisions to make as far as her personal path, her life path, the religious aspect, the relation aspect. I think that she had a lot of things on her mind at that time. It was really a pivotal time in her life. Things were changing. And again, I want to go down here really quick before we go to judgment. We've got the Princess of Wands. So the princess cards in this deck are the pages. So we've got the page, and this to me is indicating this is definitely Sister Cathy, and this is her kind of, this to me goes with that Two of Cups card, okay, that relationship brewing and blossoming. And usually the Page of Wands, you could look at this as kind of taking a new spiritual path, okay? It's something new. A page is young, it's new, it's fresh. It's in the early stages is what it is. And so Sister Cathy was very young. She was only 26, so she was probably in the early stages of everything in her life, and I think that this represents that as well. But I also think that she was starting to, because of the wands, I think she was really starting to consider different options as far as her spiritual path. And I think that leaving Keogh and no longer wearing her habit and living off of the convent and in her own apartment and working at a public school, I think all of these things were kind of, I think she was kind of going down a different path spiritually. I think that she was, I honestly feel like if she had continued living, she would have pursued a relationship with Jerry Koob and possibly gotten married. And I do think that religion was a very important aspect to her in her life, and she took it very seriously, and it would have always played a role in her life, as well as Jerry Koob, because he was also, I think, a priest, if I'm not mistaken. So I think religion would have played a huge role in their lives together, or their life together. But that was at the stage of where she was at. She was at the beginning of trying to figure all of that stuff out. And then we've got the moon. Okay, so I kind of, this makes me feel, and I really like the moon in this card. I don't know if you can see it or not, but okay, there you go. There's a face in the moon, okay? And what does the moon do? It illuminates things. It brightens the path so we can see where we're going. And usually when I look at this card, I think secrets, okay? It can have different meanings as well. It can, depending on the circumstances or the situation, it can mean dreams, okay? Your subconscious and conscious coming together, secrets being illuminated. What happens in the dark is always brought into the light, kind of a thing, right? And so with this particular card, though, I kind of feel like it has a different meaning for some reason with Sister Cathy, and I feel like she was kind of possibly starting to doubt the path that she was on, and was wondering if that path was the right path for her, and she was considering a new one. And I think that with the kind of dark connotation or feeling that you get from the moon card, because I do kind of get that secrety type of vibe from it, I think she was experiencing and seeing some things going on at Keogh that she really didn't like, and I think it was playing with her a little bit on her belief system, and she was, I think it was coming through in the Seven of Cups that she was kind of struggling. She had a lot of things on her mind and didn't quite know where to go, and then add to the mix, she was falling in love. So definitely going through some things and not knowing exactly how to move forward. Kind of learning as she goes. And this card also kind of makes me feel like she could have been very intuitive as well. she could have been the type of person to, this can be sometimes a dream card as well. All right, listening to our subconscious, getting messages, receiving messages. I kind of look at this one almost not the same as the High Priestess, but some similarities. And so it does also make me feel like she could have been very intuitive, and she could have been, seeking answers to her questions through, I would suspect, prayer. Okay, this was a person, I think she was definitely praying for guidance. So I think that represents that as well. And normally I wouldn't say that with this card, but that's what I get with this particular reading. This is a different reading a little bit for me somehow. And then we have the King of Pentacles. So the King of Pentacles is coming up for some reason. Who is this? Is this Jerry Koob? Is it someone else? I kind of feel like this is Jerry Koob for whatever reason. And obviously the King of Pentacles, that would put him in an authoritative position. Now, he was a priest, right? He was a priest. So, and this is a person who, I don't know. I'm going to hold off on this one, because to me, when I think of the kings, okay, I think of older gentlemen that are kind of seasoned and have, they're a little bit higher on the hierarchy ladder, okay, if you will. And I don't necessarily feel like at that time that was Jerry Koob's position. So I'm going to keep this one out, or I might actually pull a clarifier on this to see who exactly this is when I'm done with the Judgment card, because I have my doubts that this is Jerry Koob. So I'm not quite sure. And I always look at everyone's different, but most of the time when I pull court cards, I look at them as other key characters in the story. So let me wait and see who this is here. And then we have Judgment. So I do believe that this is Sister Cathy telling us that although there wasn't necessarily consequences or any kind of judgment or punishment or anything like that done down here on this earth, I do believe that there was karma in the next world. So whoever is responsible for Sister Cathy's crime and any other crime for that matter, they do face a justice once they leave this earth, okay? Just because you don't go in front of the judge here, or if you don't spend time in jail or whatever the case may be, karma does catch up to you eventually, okay? It does, no matter what, it does. And I do believe that this is her telling us that karma definitely caught up to who it needed to catch up to. Okay, there's no escaping it. Okay, we're all going to face whatever we need to face when we leave this earth and we transition to the next one. Okay, and I think that is definitely what she's saying that has happened. Let me just really quick. Who is the King of Pentacles? Who are we referring to here? Who's the King of Pentacles? Who's the King of Pentacles? All right, so whoever the King of Pentacles is, I do believe that this is the beginnings of the person that did this to her starting to weave himself into the reading. So I do think that this person is responsible, and I didn't actually see that one coming. So I am going to say that this card did come out in the first reading rather, and it was quite specific to a question that I had about, I was actually in that, I know I said I wanted to kind of start with a clean slate, but I just had to bring this up because this is the second time this card is coming up, and it was referring to Maskell. So, and again, whenever I pull a card like this, 8s, 9s, 10s, that's a pattern. That's a pattern of behavior for me. And that makes me feel like that's a confirmation that this person has done this before. Okay, this wasn't the first time and it wasn't the last time. Okay, they've gotten away with it, they've done it, and and this is not a wounded person. This looks like a person that is no longer alive, period. So let's just keep that in mind. Okay, so I want to go ahead and ask about your relationship with Russ. Tell us about, let's put these up here. Tell us about your relationship or your friendship with Helen Russell. What's your relationship like with Helen Russell, your friendship? All right, so the friendship with Helen, to me, I think was definitely actually a good one. I really do. I think that they got along well, and I think that tower coming out is talking about how devastating she was when this all happened. It just it literally crumbled her foundation. It was a shock. I don't think that she expected to ever deal with anything like this. It was literally a shock, and it changed her life, and it literally rocked her foundation. It rocked her world. Okay, what she thought was no longer what was after this whole thing happened. Okay, so I definitely feel like that. Now, this 10 of Cups is coming up, and that's kind of like a happy family cup. It's like a happy family card. And so but I'm asking specifically about Russ right now. And so I'm not looking at this as in a happy family or a lovers. I'm looking at this as a very genuine friendship. And I'm looking at that rainbow and all of those cups, and all of those cups filled with good emotions and good feelings and good thoughts and happiness. And that to me is her way of telling us that, yes, this friendship with Russ was just that. It was a friendship, and it was a good friendship. Okay, they were definitely brought together. They had a very close relationship. I wouldn't even be surprised if they were best friends or considered themselves to be best friends. Not just roommates, but they were very close, I think. Okay, this actually makes me feel like they were closer than what I thought. Okay, I was thinking in the beginning just possibly roommates, and it was just to split expenses, and that was it. But this kind of tells me that there was something deeper there, and there was a genuine friendship. And then we've got the Temperance card. So Temperance is balance, moderation. I think they work together. This is, to me, when I seen this card, immediately right off the bat, what I thought of was them sharing the car. That's what this card made me think of. And they just made it work. They weren't selfish. They weren't out to get for themselves. They were helping one another. They were sacrificing and doing things for each other to make this thing called life work, right? That's what they were doing. They were helping one another. And it worked, and it was balanced. And so I do think that this is, again, another representation of their friendship. There was a mutual trust. There was a mutual respect. They both had the same goals, and they were like-minded in so many ways. They were both nuns. They both left Keel. Well, I take that back. I don't know if Russ worked at Keel ever, but they were both at this point working in public schools. Okay, so they had a lot in common. And I think that that's coming up for that very reason. We've got 2 page cards. We've got the Page of Cups and the Page of Swords. Okay, so I look at that Page of Cups as the development of a friendship, or being in the early stages of a friendship. So I don't even think that they really got to explore their friendship completely yet. I think that they were still in the very, very early stages of their friendship. I wouldn't be surprised if by this that they would have remained friends their entire lives, okay? But they were definitely in the early stages of that friendship. They were developing it, okay? They were getting to know each other. They were, I think, really finding quickly, though, that they were getting along with one another. Like I said, they had so many things that they shared in common that, you know, it was really, to me, it was smooth. It was smooth sailing, especially with that Page of Cups. And then we've got this one here, the Eight of Cups. So the Eight of Cups is usually that walk away card, looking for fulfillment, looking for something that you feel maybe is lacking, or maybe what you have is no longer fulfilling you the way it should, and you're just kind of disposing of what you no longer need in your life. But I kind of look at this as them leaving Keo. I really do. I believe that they both, for their very own personal reasons, and I'm kind of curious, I might ask if the reason, well, I don't want to get too much into Russ because I'm already like a half an hour in or 40 minutes in, but I was going to ask what was the reason that Russ decided to leave, if she left Keo. So I'm not going to ask that because I don't even know if she was at Keo. But this to me is showing them kind of walking away, especially Sister Cathy, walking away from Keo and the church in itself. Not the church. I don't want to say the church, because I do think that no matter what path that Cathy or Sister Cathy would have chosen, she would have still been very, very focused on her religion and very much interacting in that environment and in that world, but in a different capacity, if that makes sense. I think she was choosing to leave certain things behind so she could travel down this new path, because I think that that's where she was headed. And then we've got the Hanged Man. So the Hanged Man is, usually I look at this card as stagnation. In this particular case, I do think that that's exactly what it means. But I think that in her case, in Sister Cathy's case, I think she was in that period of where she was. Remember, I pulled that Seven of Cups, right? I pulled the Seven of Cups. Did I not? Okay, I pulled the Seven of Cups. And this kind of makes me feel like this was her time to pause and reflect and think about what she wanted to do moving forward. So this is a stagnation card. It can sometimes mean that you need to pause. Sometimes it's a good thing. It's a good thing to pause and reflect and see how you want to continue on and how you want to move forward and get out of the situation that you're in, okay? If it were to come out reversed, sometimes that could mean that you're in a situation that you shouldn't be in, but you're failing to act upon it, okay? You're failing to try to get out of the situation. So, or you just feel stuck. You just, or you're comfortable. Even in a bad situation, you're comfortable, so you're going to stay. But in this particular reading, I do think it represents this. I think Sister Cathy was in a phase in her life where she was on the verge of doing something, okay? She was on the verge of possibly considering a relationship with someone I think she was developing feelings for. She was leaving the convent. She was no longer following the rules of the church. She was living by herself. She was driving a car. She was working in a public school. And she had this huge thing on her mind, what the students had confided in her about Maskell and Magnus, okay? So all these things are in her mind, and I think that this was her moment of pause. This was her moment of pause to consider what she was going to do moving forward and how she was going to do it, making her plan. I think this was her planning time. All right, so, I forgot the Knight of Pentacles. So the Knight of Pentacles, it's interesting that one came up, and I'm glad that I brought out this King of Pentacles. I'm glad I saved that. Okay, so we've got, remember I pulled the King of Pentacles and I didn't quite know who it was. And when I pulled a clarifier, I pulled the Ten of Swords. And so that to me tells me it's the person that's responsible for Sister Cathy's death. Now, I'm pulling the Knight of Pentacles, okay? So this tells me you know, I feel like this is the person responsible, but this is the person who did the dirty act, okay? This is the one who got his hands dirty. This is the guy calling the shots. He's the one running the show, but he's the one actually doing it, okay? So it makes me feel like we're looking at Maskell and we're looking at Magnus, okay? So definitely the one running the stuff here, I think is Maskell, and ultimately he is responsible. I think they're both responsible, but he uses this guy here, Magnus, as his errand boy. So I do believe I'm going to keep those out, though, just in case. And so that leads me to the next question. Is Magnus responsible for your death? Is Magnus responsible for your death? Did Joseph... No, I'm sorry, not Magnus. Maskell. I'm sorry. Is Joseph Maskell responsible? Joseph Maskell responsible? Joseph Maskell. Joseph Maskell. Okay. So... all right. Definitely this one here makes me feel like we're on to something with Maskell because of the judgment. Okay. And again, I know I'm referring back to the last video or the one that I recorded right before this one. The judgment came out on Maskell. Okay. So I'm starting to see the repeats. So I'm asking on Maskell at this point in time. So the Six of Cups rather, is a reciprocity card, but it can also, sometimes I call it the blast from the past as well. It can be someone from your past and, you know, into your future. But in this particular case, what I think it is telling me, what I feel like it's telling me, is that whoever committed this crime, she knew this person. She had interaction with this person. This was someone in her life, okay? This was someone that she knew. That Six of Cups tells me this is someone she knew. It was someone in her life, okay? And she knew Maskell. And Maskell was, in a sense, part of her past, okay? Like I just said, this is a past from the blast. So, you know, regardless, I think that Maskell was still in her life at that time. But as far as a supervisor, I wouldn't think that he would be her superior at that point. I could be wrong. I don't know anything about Catholicism or how Catholic schools operate or anything like that. I don't know the hierarchy of those positions, but I would assume, okay, that if Sister Cathy left Keogh and she went to another high school, a public high school, I would assume that Maskell was no longer her superior, so he would be someone from her past, obviously still mingled in with her present, but I kind of feel like we're talking about Maskell, and I kind of feel like we are definitely talking about someone that she knew. And this is a pretty deceptive person. So this, to me, the Seven of Swords, this right here, you know, if that's him, and I do believe that it is Maskell, I mean, we're talking about someone who will lie and steal to get what he wants, okay? Someone who will do anything to anyone, and he gets away with it. He gets away with it. This is a person who, I mean, he's got a cocky, look at that cocky facial expression that he has on his face. I mean, he's just, he's doing it in broad daylight. He's not even doing it under the cover of darkness. I mean, this is a person who is very, what's the word I'm looking for? He doesn't even, he's not even scared. Okay, he's willing to do whatever he's doing in broad daylight, even given his position, but he's abusing his position of authority, okay? And he's getting away with it. That's the only thing I keep thinking. He's getting away with it. And look how many times he's done it. Look at all those swords. Those swords to me represent every time that he has harmed someone. So I do believe that this is a guy who has done these things, and he has done these things many times. Okay. And again, the judgment, okay, judgment, it doesn't matter. well, it may down here on earth, okay, but in the eyes of justice, okay, it doesn't matter what position you're in. To me, this tells me, this confirms that in justice's eyes, like real, true karma justice, okay, it doesn't matter what your position is, what your or position of authority is, what level you are in the church, okay, whether you're a priest, whether you're an archdiocese, okay, it doesn't matter. Karma gets everyone, okay, it gets all of us, right? That's just the way it is, at least in my eyes and my personal beliefs. So to me, it sounds like maybe Maskell got away with a lot here on earth, but I don't think that he got away with it when he transitioned to the next life, okay? That is where I think his true justice came, his true karma. So when he transferred or when he transitioned to the next life, it didn't matter if he was a priest, it didn't matter who was paying who, it didn't matter what his attire was with his collar or whatever, his money, okay, there's no paying off anybody over there, okay? It's just everybody's treated the same and they're treated based on their actions, okay? So I do believe that he did get, he found some karma eventually. And then we've got the Ace of Cups. So I definitely kind of do feel that this is kind of like a rebirth. I'm looking at this one. I'm reading these cards a little bit differently tonight for some reason, and I don't know why. I'm not looking at them in the usual true crime type vibe that I usually do, so it's a little off to me, but it's just what's coming to me, so I'm just going with the flow. But this to me is almost like a rebirth, and it kind of makes me feel like there was, with it coming out with the Justice card, it just kind of makes me feel like there was, I almost want to say, honestly, what's coming to my mind right now is Sister Cathy literally saying, I forgave him. I forgive him. Like, I feel like this is whatever happened to him, what has happened to him since he has passed. Sister Cathy holds no grudges whatsoever. This is like an overflow of love and emotions and good feelings and happiness and peace. Okay, and to me, this is her. This is what she's going through and what she's feeling. Okay, so he went through his karma and she's okay. I definitely feel like this is a message from her that she is definitely okay, and I for whatever reason, I do hear her say, I forgive him. I don't think that she, holds any grudges or is in any kind of duress whatsoever. She is definitely at peace. Okay, whenever I see that symbol right there, this is a person who is at peace, okay? And I think that I know we're talking about Sister Cathy. I do want to ask a couple of questions about her relationship with Jerry Koob. Okay, so I know that with that Two of Cups that came up, I do kind of want to know a little bit more about that and expand on that one a little bit. Okay. King of Cups. Oh. Okay. All right. So I do feel like in this situation, he is the King of Cups. She is the Empress, and then we have the Wheel of Fortune. So when I see the Empress come out, if you notice, the main thing that I see right now, the biggest thing that I'm looking at is the age of the Empress. Usually in tarot decks, you see the Empress, she's either pregnant or sometimes in certain decks. I know, for example, Los Scarabio's After Tarot deck, it's the image right after the image that we're all used to seeing. That's why it's called the After Tarot. She's not pregnant anymore. She's had the children, so she has a couple of children sitting on her lap. But this is a mother figure, okay? That's a nurturer, loving, caring, compassionate. And so, but this one is younger, okay? She's not yet pregnant, okay? And so that's how I'm looking at Sister Cathy. I think that she was definitely mother material, and she was very warm and very compassionate, but she was still young. She hadn't even reached 30 yet, okay? And so I think that this also indicates, I kind of feel like in my heart of hearts that had she continued to live, she would have ultimately had children. She would have had children with Jerry Coop, okay? I do think that they would have eventually gotten married. And I do think that they would have definitely followed in their faith. They would have definitely remained in contact with the church or been involved in the church in some capacity, but they would have broken off from what path that they were on at that time. Okay, they would have changed. They would have diverted and changed up a little bit, and I think that they would have pursued a relationship, and I think she would have had children. And she was already in that role with her students because she was already described as very warm and compassionate and caring. And so very interesting that this one came out. But I think that this was definitely in the stage of early stages. Okay, early stages. I mean, I've already pulled 2 pages. I think just 2 pages, maybe 3. But, an ace here, an ace there. But these are all early stage cards, okay? So she was really in the early parts of her life. She didn't really get a chance to live. She had accomplished a lot in her few years here on Earth, her 26 years on Earth. But she was still very much in the early stages. And that kind of leads us to the Wheel of Fortune. So I do kind of feel like... the Wheel of Fortune, it's a reminder that the world, our lives, our paths, our cycles are ever changing. Okay, we're always moving, we're always transitioning. There's no end, there's only transitioning. If there, or what ends, it begins again. Okay, as something else, and that's just the way the world works. That's just the way it is, and so. I do feel like I feel like in this situation it is what it is. It's the Wheel of Fortune, and I honestly, looking at this card, it makes me feel like there was so much that she had yet to accomplish and didn't get an opportunity. And I could be completely wrong about this, but I do believe that we have, and this is my opinion only, okay? I don't put my beliefs on anyone else, but I do believe in reincarnation, and I do believe that when we pass over or when we cross over, if there's something that we really, truly, truly want or need to fulfill, that we have that option of returning. Okay, so that's just a personal belief, and that's how I'm looking at this card. That I don't think she finished what she set out to, and I feel like she was taken so early before she had a chance to do that, that I do feel like with the wheel turning and the constant cycles and the never ending, I feel like I'm getting a really strong feeling that she is definitely coming back in some form, shape, or another. Okay, I don't think that her time here on this earth, that was enough. Okay, I think she's, I feel like she would definitely choose to come back. I don't think she has yet. But I think she will. Okay, that's what I'll say about that. Very interesting, because I don't think I've ever said that on here about the Wheel of Fortune. For some reason, this tarot reading tonight is going completely AWOL. Very, very different. So. Kind of interesting. I want to ask about the Weiner lady who claims that Maskell took her out to see Sister Cathy's body. If that happened, did Maskell in fact take this woman out to view and threaten her by showing her body? Okay, so when looking at that particular question, I'm looking at the knight, okay, and the knight really indicates action. So I definitely am feeling like he did that this incident did occur, okay, and I'm looking at these first two cards here, okay, the Seven of Wands. This is defensiveness, okay, but in this particular card, okay, and usually most of the Seven of Wands cards, the man is always higher up, okay? He can't be touched. And to me, this kind of just verifies what I've been saying all evening in this reading, that Joseph Maskell, was in a position of authority and he was untouchable. All these wands here represent the allegations by the women. And even though they attempted to go after him and they attempted to get justice, they never seemed to be able to touch him. He was untouchable. He was in a different position. He was in a higher position than them. And no matter what they did, he was never taken down. And so I do feel like, to go back to my question, did he take this lady out to view Sister Cathy's body and use that as a threat? I would say absolutely. And he was cocky enough to do that. I mean, remember when I pulled the Seven of Swords, I said this is a guy who is not afraid to do something in broad daylight. He's that sure of himself. He's that cocky. He's that arrogant, okay? He knows that he's untouchable. He knows that no matter what someone does or tries to do, they're not going to be able to get to him because of his position, okay? His position, his higher up position. And in this card, he's literally higher up. He's high above the other wands. They can't reach him. So I definitely see him doing that. And this one here is contentment. So if you can see that, contentment. And I like that card. I like the way I like his outfit. I like his white robe. But this is contentment. Sometimes it can be a little bit of lack of moderation. But to me, this just, again, goes with that power and authority. He was happy about it. He was content with the way he was getting away with things. He knew he was getting away with things. And he was just overflowing with joy. I mean, I think he really thrived off of this. And I think in this particular case, when I mentioned the word moderation, he had no idea what the word moderation meant. Okay, he just took and took and took and didn't think about who he hurt or anything in the process. So I definitely do think that because of this Knight, though. Okay, what is this? The Knight of Cups. The Knight of Cups. Normally I look at the Knight of Cups as a relationship type card, okay? But I do feel like I'm looking at it in the aspect of pure action, okay? Pure action. And cups is a feeling, and it's water, right? It's feelings and emotions. And I think that he tried to take her out there to evoke feelings and emotions, but not the love feelings that we think of when we think of a regular Knight of Cups. These were feelings of fright, okay? I think he was trying to evoke feelings of fright in her, okay? I think he was definitely trying to scare her. So I'm definitely looking at this as a feelings and emotions, but not in the traditional sense, okay? So we can have both. We can have good feelings and emotions, or we can have bad feelings and emotions. And I think that with these three cards, given the question that I asked, did Maskell take this woman out there and show her Sister Cathy's body and threaten her? Absolutely. I do think that he threatened her. He meant to take her out there and scare the living daylights out of her. He wanted her to know that he was untouchable. And no matter what she did or anyone else did, okay, there was no way that you were going to get to him. He was untouchable. And that made him as happy as all get out. He loved it. He thrived on it. So, yeah. All right. So what else do we have? What am I at? An hour and 3 minutes. Okay. Let me ask really quick. I think the only one that I missed so far is the corruption. How far did the corruption go? Was the church paying off the investigation? Was the church, or the investigators, was the church paying off the investigators or the police? Was the church paying off police? Yeah, absolutely. What a pull. Wow, 3 major arcanas. Yeah, that's crazy. To me, right here, the church, this is the archdiocese. That's that person. Okay, this is the higher up of the higher up. Okay, this is Maskell's boss. Okay, so this is someone here who is definitely trying to stay under the cover of darkness and keep things hidden, and definitely the opposite of what I would normally say about the hermit. The hermit means introspection. Okay, this is just kind of taking time to be by yourself and, you know, help, ask for guidance for yourself, help others. But in this particular instance, this is, to me, the Archdiocese of Baltimore. This is the head of the church. This is Maskell's boss, like I just said. And he is literally trying to keep things hidden, okay? He's only highlighting what he wants to be highlighted. And I'm looking at, to me, this is unbelievable that this card is coming out. This is definitely, to me, him trying to... This is a yes to my question, in other words. Yes, I do believe that the police department was paid off essentially to stay quiet. He did not want any of this information to get out. And I feel like really at this point in time, we don't even have all the information today. I know that the documentary has been made, of course, but I don't feel like that is even all the information. There's more information that is out there, and there's victims out there that cannot come forward because they're no longer alive. So I think there's look how big that cloak is, or his robe. I mean, his face is kind of semi-covered. So to me, that really kind of indicates that he's definitely hiding, things. There's a lot of things that we still don't, we just don't know. It's been hidden. Okay. The Chariot. So this is a movement, okay? A movement card. It can mean literally transportation. It can be overcoming obstacles, having a goal in mind. But let me look at this one here for a second. So definitely, to me, it's somebody that is going forward, right? They're going forward and they're overcoming obstacles. And I do believe that, in this particular card, he has no reins. Okay, he has no reins. The Sphinxes are taking the chariot without the reins. They just know where to go. But I'm looking at this also as a card where he has stalled. Okay, in this particular, and I know this sounds like really out there for some reason, like I'm really going opposite in what I would normally say about these cards, but it's what's coming to me and it's what I believe the message is. This to me is the investigation moving forward, okay? And this right here is the church, okay? The higher up in the church, whoever that may be, the archdiocese, whoever. He is stopping this from moving forward. He does not want this to go forward, okay? He has taken the reins. That's why the reins are not there, okay? He cannot go forward. He cannot guide the Sphinx to guide him, okay? Because he has no reins to move them. Normally, I would not say that about this card, but that's how I feel, okay? So I do feel like the answer to my question is, investigators in the police department were, I don't know if they were probably paid off because money talks, but there was something used, okay, to stop them from pursuing their investigation. Okay, so definitely that to me that would be a yes. And then we've got the Sun card. So I do feel like, again, this goes with that Justice card. Okay, I do feel like I really, really like the images in this deck. Look at that face again in the sun. That is really unique and different. But I'm looking at the child, and we are talking about, in essence, children, okay? You know, my oldest is 25, and I still think of him, you know, a young man, but, you know, he's my kid, he's my little guy, whatever. You know, I that is a young age, okay, to me. So definitely when you're looking at 17, 16, 18-year-olds in high school, to me that's still a kid, okay? I'm sorry, it's just a kid. And I think that this card does represent them, and I do think that there has been justice on the other side, okay? Even though the justice is not here, but I think it is becoming exposed. And I think that did I not pull the moon card, or was that in my messed up reading? If I didn't pull the moon card in this one, I pulled the moon. Okay, yeah. This kind of, to me, goes with this one as well, because I think that even though there wasn't 100% justice, things are being exposed, okay? We are learning things. We are learning more and more things every day. I think the documentary kind of brought that story to everyone's attention, and people started waking up to the fact that this was actually going on. And so I do think that has brought some peace amongst the victims that are alive and the victims that are not alive. I think this represents both. So I do want to end the reading with one more card and just a message. Just a message from Sister Cathy. So, Sister Cathy, how would you like to end this reading? What is a message? What's a message that you want to end this reading with? What's a message that you want to end this reading with? What's a message that you want to tell us? Oh my goodness, Sister Cathy. Oh, I said a positive message. Didn't I say a positive message? Okay. All right. Well, let me see. What does Sister Cathy want us to know? I think, honestly, let me just look here for a second. We've got the Two of Wands, the Eight of Wands. 2 eights, right? 8 of Swords and the Devil. This is an interesting message, very intricate. I do think that 8 of Swords in the beginning is definitely an indication that more information is to come, that we do not have all of the information yet, that information is still coming in. And I know this is supposed to be a fast card. It says swiftness right on it, but I don't really feel like it's as swift as what we would like it to be, but I do kind of take this as more information, and I think this is also the women who have come forward. Okay, so I do feel like that is the strength of the women coming forward. And you know, the 8 of Swords, you know, swords are air, so these are our thoughts and our ideas. So basically it's in our head, okay? We're not literally tied up. Now sometimes when I'm reading for true crime, I do take this as a literal tie up, and I do feel like some of these things are coming out because this is ultimately, sadly, what Sister Cathy Cesnick possibly went through, okay? And being bound and being blindfolded and you know, being held somewhere and discarded, okay? But I also feel like this is, because it is her final message, I do feel like it is her message to tell us that it is in our minds, and we can break free of that if we truly want to, okay? You can tackle those thoughts in your mind, and you can choose. I mean, we've got the Two of Wands here. Depending on your choice in life, you don't have to take this route, okay? And I believe that she came in contact with a person that chose this route, and ultimately it ended her life, okay? So I do think that this devil is definitely coming out to represent the devil that she dealt with here in, you know, this plane on this earth, okay? So I definitely think that, you know, this one here, I think that in her situation it was Maskell, and possibly higher up, even higher than him, Archdiocese, because I do believe that he was aware of things going on and he wanted to keep it under the rug, okay? It doesn't, and to me, when you want to keep something under the rug, that also means in essence that you condone it, because you're not showing any kind of consequences for what's being or what's happening. So I do believe that this is what she was up against, okay? He chose that path. This is the path that he chose. He chose this one. He chose to do these things. So he loved it. He thrived on it. I think he loved that power. He loved to be in charge. He loved to frighten people. He loved to scare people, and he loved to hurt people. And that's what she dealt with. But I think that this is her final message, is that you don't have to choose that. You have free will. You know, you don't have to go that route. You don't have to take that path, and you don't have to stay bound together, or you don't have to stay like this, okay? You can break free from this. If you notice, the one thing always about the man and the woman underneath the devil, the man and the woman underneath the devil choose to stay there, okay? They're not forced. He's not forcing them. He lures them, and he makes it so tempting to where they want to go there, and then they just get attached, okay? They get attached to him, but they can leave at any time. He's not forcing them. We all have free will. So, you know, you can choose. You can choose to stay there with him, or you can choose to not, okay? But it's up to us. It's up to you. And I think that that is her lesson here in this reading, is that, you know, we are ultimately in charge of our destiny, our path, and what path we want to take. Unfortunately, she met with someone that was, you know, I think evil and had dark intentions. But I do think that there are more things, I think, that are going to come out. And I think that those things, even though I feel like she is at peace because of that Ace of Cups, I really, really in my heart of hearts, I know she's at peace with that Ace of Cups. And I know she doesn't hold any ill will in her heart towards whoever did this to her. But I also feel like, you know, she's still saying that there's more to come. I think there's more to come. I really do. I think there's more information and more accusations and more... I don't know. I do think that the story isn't over, is what I'm saying. These arrows or these wands have not landed. They're still in midair. They're still traveling. That's what they're doing. They're traveling. They're in midair. When they land, that is when it's over, right? That's when the story is kind of wrapped up. And so they haven't landed yet. So that tells me that there is still more to come, and that, I think, is her message. So that was kind of a tough message from Sister Cathy. Not the message I was expecting, but the message nonetheless. And I am at, oh my God, 1 hour and 17 minutes. I'm so sorry, guys. I didn't mean to go this long. This is really a video that could have used a part 2. But anyway, thank you so much for suggesting this video. And a very interesting one at that. I hope this, you know, kind of answered some of the questions. I think it did for me. And it kind of really, if nothing else, it really did show me the true personality and kindness and genuineness of Sister Cathy. I think that she was definitely everything that everyone said that she was, and more. And it really, to me, showed in the cards that came up. And unfortunately, she had her life taken way too early, and she did not get an opportunity to fulfill her wishes and dreams and goals and desires. But like I said, there's no ending in tarot, right? There's only transition. So we don't know what is to come in the future as far as, you know, her possibly finishing out her past or her destiny. So all right, guys, until next week, I hope you enjoyed this. Have a great weekend, and I will see you then.